David Allen is wereldwijd bekend als de auteur van de bestseller Getting Things Done. Getting Things Done is een van de meest gebruikte methodes om zo effectief mogelijk alle to-do's in je leven en werk te structureren. Het bedrijf achter Getting Things Done, de David Allen Company, werkt sinds een paar jaar met Holacracy. Holacracy is een vernieuwde manier om bedrijven te organiseren en heeft een nauwe relatie met Getting Things Done. Een van de opvallende kenmerken van Holacracy is de extreem gestructureerde manier van vergaderen, waar we in ons blog al eerder over schreven. Dat is een goede reden om David een paar vergadervragen te stellen. In deze eerste aflevering vertelt hij hoe vergaderingen eruit zien binnen de David Allen Company, hoe Holacracy vergaderingen verschillen van klassieke vergaderingen en over hoe hij zijn eigen vergaderingen kan verbeteren.
Welcome, David. We have a couple of questions about effective meetings.
Cool.
For starters, when you have meetings at the David Allen Company, what does a typical meeting look like?
Well, because we've implemented Holacracy and have been working that for, wow, about 4 years now, most of our regular kind of meetings are based upon the Holacracy model. So we have governance meetings that basically produce roles or changes in roles and policies. And we have tactical meetings, which are basically designed to sort of see how the work is going and unstick anything that needs to be unstuck, for people. And then strategy meetings, make sure that we're pointed in the right direction. So those are 3 typical standard meetings that we have. And then we have all kinds of ad hoc meetings that are just to get the work done, that are not necessarily within that format. If you don't need that format, you might just say, there are 3 people working on a project, we need to get together, because it's easier to do it that way than to try to do it through, some other asynchronous format.
And what's the biggest difference when you compare the way you had meetings before you started working with Holacracy and the way you do it now?
Ooh, that's hard to answer because it's so, there are many subtle differences. In a way, it looks like just a really well-run meeting. So if you looked in on any of our meetings, you say, wow, that was just really well-run. I think we found that the Holacracy structure gives us a really solid framework that then makes it much easier to resolve tensions. A lot of what the process is about is to recognize what do people have their attention on, what needs sort of groupthink, or what needs, something that needs a collaboration or cooperation in order to move it forward or take advantage of it. And so tensions essentially bring the agendas. So essentially, what's different is that they're I'd say much more effective, much more efficient. And they also make sure that, as much as possible, that people don't feel like that they weren't heard. It gives people a voice. But it's not, willy-nilly and crazy. There's, very specific way that people have an opportunity to participate, to react, to bring forward, issues or challenges, questions about that. So it's helped a ton to let the organization get more mature about what are the issues, problems, how to think those things through. So as opposed to all of those filtering up to the top 3 or 4 or 5 people, really everybody in the organization is now involved in those kinds of conversations. So I think over time it's made a big difference in terms of just maturing the conversations and maturing how we get the work done.
And when you think of a Holacracy meeting, how close would it come to like the perfect meeting?
Well, perfect, what's the purpose of the meeting? Yeah. You don't know what perfect would mean unless you know what you're trying to accomplish. So again, if what you're trying to accomplish is a strategic direction, then a strategy meeting is about as good as it gets to try to make that decision. If what you're meeting about is to get a status of where things are and everybody kind of get on the same page and find out whether there are things that are stuck or that need to get unstuck, and the group needs to help facilitate that, tactical meeting is pretty good. I've never seen a better way to do that.
Would there be things in a Holacracy meeting or just your meetings you would like to improve?
To improve, well, there's always the improvement of even as good as Holacracy is, there's still people's personalities involved, and people don't want to hurt people's feelings, and they don't want to, if they perceive that somebody's more senior in some way in the organization, and they don't want to push back on them in some way. So, I think it still comes down to, as we've talked about, the confusion of the person and the roles. So learning to speak from a role-based way of thinking about what you're doing and what you're trying to communicate. That's a big mature process to get through there. So I'd say that's an ongoing way to continually have an improvement opportunity, is to make sure people are more identified in their communications with the role that's driving the communication and the purpose for that, and not let their personalities get in the way.
In de volgende aflevering spreken we met David over de vereisten van een goede vergadering, de grootste vergaderkillers en de toekomst van vergaderen.